What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down 5 tips for you to throw a perfect spiral every time. Let's get started. Now, before we get into this video, fellas, if you are a quarterback and would like to improve your football IQ, you want to learn how you can read defenses, the best place to work against certain defenses, weaknesses of each coverage, check out that very first link in the description below where you can get access to over 500 plus videos that I myself have broken down describing how quarterbacks can read defenses. Every single video is organized into categories so the information is easy to follow, easy to understand, and easy to learn. So check out that very first link in the description below if you want to learn how you can read defenses. Let's get back to this video. All right, guys, so the first tip that I want to talk about when it comes to throwing a perfect spiral every single time is going to be your grip. So now it's not so much about where your hands are on the threads. Everybody's got a different grip. Everybody's got a different way of throwing a football, but it comes down to where your palm is placed on the football. So I think a lot of times, especially guys who have smaller hands, maybe guys who have a little bit weaker of a grip, they try to get their entire hand on this ball because they want to control this ball. But you have to understand that throwing a spiral comes down to flicking this ball off of your hand. You need to get to extension, and we're going to talk about all these things throughout this video, but you need to have a good grip and you need to set yourself up for that. So if you have your palm all over the ball, that is not how you're going to be able to spin this thing. You're going to push it, you're going to curve the ball. You guys want to have a gap of air between your palm and the football. Like if you hold your hand up to the sky, you should be able to see the sky. That's how much of a gap there should be. Another good rule of thumb is if you're holding a football and you can't fit a finger between your thumb or between your palm and the football, that means that you got too much palm on the ball. So put a finger in there, get that gap, and that is how you're going to spin the ball a little bit better. Because you spin the ball off of your fingers. You don't spin it off of your palm, so there's no reason that your palm should be on the football. So if you guys want to throw a better spiral, make sure that you have that gap between your palm and the football. All right, guys, now the second thing that I want to talk about when it comes to throwing a spiral is the index finger. So your index finger is your spiral finger. Now, a lot of people don't necessarily know that. They don't know that when you release the ball, that should be the last finger to touch the ball, and that's where that spin rate comes from. Now, a lot of times, guys, what they'll do, the problems that they'll have is that with their grip, that index finger is way too low. They'll have that index finger very, very close to their middle finger. Now, when you have that, it makes it very tough to be that last finger that comes off the ball. So an easy recommendation that I could give to a lot of quarterbacks is maybe move this index finger up a little higher. A lot of people mess with the grip of, like the ring finger, the pinky finger. I don't really like to mess with that a whole lot. I think I have more so like of a classic grip where the ring finger's on like the second thread right here. But some people have different grips that work for them. Just try to make sure that your index finger is in a comfortable spot, but it's also in a high spot. You don't want to be like overly high because that's just going to work against you, but move that index finger up maybe a touch higher, and that'll help you get a little bit better of a spin rate on the ball. Now, another thing that I've seen a lot of guys see success with, if you feel like the index finger is not the last finger to touch the football, and maybe it's your middle finger or your ring finger to come off the ball last, and sometimes that ball has that like outer spin, if you will, what I recommend doing is trying to apply more pressure with the index finger. So if you have a light grip, maybe try to apply a little bit more pressure with the index finger. Don't squeeze the ball super tight. Apply a little more pressure, and that will make it that last finger that comes off the ball because it has more pressure on the ball. Okay, so those are 2 easy tips that I've worked through that have helped me out a lot. I like the more pressure with the index, not necessarily moving it higher, but I think those can help you throw a much tighter spiral. All right, guys, now the third tip that I want to talk to you about throwing a perfect spiral is going to be your front side. Now, a lot of people don't think about their front side in their throwing motion to help them with spin rate, but your front side affects your release point, and your release point has everything to do with spin rate, aka your release point, which I mean extension. You want to be able to extend directly to the target. So when you go to throw, an old school like kind of method of teaching the quarterback position was, okay, when you're about to throw, you want to take this front shoulder and you want to replace it with your back shoulder. You want to end up finishing like this to the target. Now, the problem with that is that when you over rotate with your front side and you have all this rotation from your core and from your hips, because that's where quarterbacks get all their power from. They get all their power from their hips and their core bringing them through. If your front side is pulling off this like midline, if you will, and over rotating, that can affect your release point. Everybody talks about, the different sidearm throws that quarterbacks will make, like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. Those are different types of sidearm throws that I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about your arm exiting your body frame because your front shoulder is ripping wide open. Now, how does that affect spiral? It affects spiral because when your release point is out here and you have all this rotational force, your arm serves as like almost like a lever in a way, and it's going to rip across your body. And when your arm is ripping across your body, you're not getting to a position of extension. Same thing when you drop your front elbow in your throwing motion. So that's another problem that a lot of older school quarterback coaches would teach, is that when guys throw, take this front elbow and pull it down to your hip. Now, what do you think that does? That probably pulls your head left, and we're going to talk about your head when it comes down to throwing a spiral in a second. But when that elbow comes down and your release point goes up, you're not extending, you're coming down on the ball. And sometimes that can cause you to push the ball, sometimes that can cause you to release the ball late, and that can also affect the spin rate of the ball. So where you want to stay, and watch any NFL quarterback when they throw, they all have an extremely disciplined front side. And what do I mean by that? So I mean, like when we're about to throw and I step into this thing, when I finish, my shoulders should stay parallel to the target. Watch Patrick Mahomes, even when he throws sidearm. This front side is insanely stable. Watch, Kyler Murray, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. They don't have this big rotation with their front side. They keep this front side stable. Hand stays up by their face like they're eating a sandwich. Shoulders stay level. So what can they do? They have all this rotational force here. This stays square. Their arm just snaps through, and that snap is how we get a higher spin rate on the ball and a little bit more of a spiral on the ball. So if you're a more advanced quarterback, I think that's definitely something that can affect that spin rate on the ball. If you're on the beginner side of things, I would maybe focus on the earlier tips that we focused on in this video, but that's 100% something that affects spin rate for a lot of quarterbacks, is having that flawed release point. All right, guys, the next thing that I want to talk about, and it comes to spinning the football, throwing a better spiral, is going to be your wrist flick. So there's a lot of different opinions on the wrist flick. I've heard a lot of quarterbacks say that when you throw, a lot of quarterback coaches, when you throw, you want to turn your palm outward, like almost like I guess you could say, like, pronate the wrist in a way, or turn your thumb to where it's facing the ground, and you want to finish here, right? So when you see a lot of NFL quarterbacks throw, like, I think a good example, if you guys look back at Tom Brady film, like older film, he was one of those like pronate out guys, like turn the thumb down, turn the palm outward, and extend this way because the ball's coming off of that index finger. That's how I was personally taught, and I felt like I got a lot of benefit out of that, I guess you could say. But me, when I would look back at clips of myself throwing, I would always be more so flicked down rather than out. I would try to flick, obviously, my wrist, but it wouldn't be outward, it would be downward. So that, I think, downward or outward is a good spot to be at. The one thing that you don't want is you don't want your palm facing upward and you almost coming across your frame, because when your palm is facing upward, that's usually from quarterbacks who like to rip open with the front side, and when they pull the front side, the arm widens. That's when their palm is upward. When your palm's upward, you're not going to be spinning the ball, you're almost curving the ball. So I think palm down or palm out is one of the best ways to get a better spin on the ball. All right, guys, so the next tip I want to talk about when it comes to throwing a better spiral is going to be keeping your head steady. So that's a mistake that a lot of young quarterbacks make, because they're trying to put a lot more velocity and power on the ball, that after they hit the ground with their front foot, they'll start to dip their head down. And that serves the same thing as what we were talking about earlier in this video with the front shoulder ripping open or the front elbow pulling down. When you do either of those things, that affects your release point. So if you're going to throw and your head pulls off of something called like the midline on your body, aka your spine, if your head pulls off the midline, what do you think that does to your release point? It widens it out the midline, and we can't get to that extension point. We're coming down, we're coming across, and that prevents me from getting to, like we said, extension. And extension is how I get that snap of the wrist and that tighter spin rate on the ball. So when you guys go to throw, you want to try the best you can to keep your head as steady as possible. A drill that I'll do with a lot of my quarterbacks is that I'll put my hand on the top of their head, and I'll have them throw with my hand on the top of their head, so they feel like they can't move their head. It's almost uncomfortable in a way, but that's a good way to get that head to stay steady. Number two, I'll tell my quarterbacks to keep their eyes completely level. Don't look at the football. A lot of times quarterbacks are so result oriented and want to see if they threw that perfect spiral or that perfect ball. So they'll go to throw, but they're trying to watch the ball come off their hand, and that causes a lean of their head. So if we just focus on the target, keep my eyes level, pretend like somebody's got their hand on the top of my head, that can help you stay more steady, and that can help you get to that good extension point for a tighter spiral on the ball. All right, guys, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. We always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you are a quarterback and would like to learn how you can read defenses, the best plays to work against defenses, the weaknesses of each coverage, check out that very first link in the description below. You get access to 500 plus videos, all based on how quarterbacks can read defenses. So again, very first link in that description below. I'll see you guys next time.